So today I will present my thesis entitled Methoristic Approaches for Solving Transport Optimization Problem in Urban Logistics. First, I would like to thank you all for attending, and especially jury for reading manuscript. This thesis took part in the Opus ANR DFG project. I was supervised by Fabien Levedé and Olivier Péton. And we work in collaboration during these 3 years with Stéphanie Ernich, Christian Kilk, and Katharina Olkis from the University of Mainz, where I spent 1 month. In addition, Theo Le Colleter did in 6 months master internship with us at IMT Atlantic. So the purpose of my thesis was to extend already existing standard vehicle routing problem model to incorporate new practices and other new possibilities in order to design routes using them, and to develop methods and new models to solve this problem. And in Nantes, there was historical expertise with a heuristic method called LNS that I will present to you later. And in Mainz, there was a strong expertise in branch and cut and price method. So the purpose of this collaboration was to develop method using both sides to develop methoristic methods. To be more precise, I focused on attended parcel deliveries in cities, either to private customer or to shops. Typically, those deliveries are performed using large vans, such as this one, but with the rapid growth of the market, this becomes unacceptable because of noise pollution, air pollution, safety, congestion, and so on. Indeed, just around Nantes, it's estimated that there is around 300,000 movements of goods per week. So this truck cannot be used anymore for all the deliveries. Thus, many carriers in the past few years started to use lighter electric vehicles to perform the deliveries in cities. To accompany this shift in the market, vehicle routing problem software are developed. For example, here with Mapotempo. These software are very capable with back-end and front-end softwares, taking into account the preference of the driver, preference of the carrier, the topology of the city, and so on. But of course, there is still much work to do, so we intend to develop models and methods for them to be later integrated in this kind of software and to be used in practice. My presentation will be in 4 parts. First, I will present the 2 problems that we defined during this thesis. Then I will present the method that we developed. And I will present some experiments, both on the method and the problem. And finally, I will conclude. So, the 2 problems that we developed are the vehicle routing problem with delivery option, VRPDO, and the 2-echelon multi-trip vehicle routing problem with capacitated satellite and reverse flow, that I will now call the 2-echelon problem. First, with the VRPDO. So the motivation of this problem comes from the fact that nowadays, when you order a parcel online, you typically just give your home address. And then you will be delivered at your home, but with a very large time window, from 9 to 7 typically. This is very impractical, and this causes many no-show, meaning that when the carrier comes at your door, you're not here, so you have to come again. With this problem, we intend to take advantage of the fact that people move, first to avoid no-show, but also to reduce the cost. So the idea is that when you order a parcel online, you would specify your home address, but also a locker that you like, your office, a small shops as a pick-up point where you often go, and so on. Each of them with different time window, and each of them with a preference level. First being the option that you prefer, and higher preference level for less desirable options. From the perspective of the carrier, delivery options look like this. Customers are now represented by cluster of points. And we can see that some locations are shared between multiple customers. We call them shared delivery location, as opposed to individual delivery location. Then the goal for the carrier is to find a route visiting at least 1 point in each of this cluster to serve all customers. And here is an example of a route using only the home option, so the classical vehicle routing prime with time window, and a route using multiple delivery options. And we can see that using alternative delivery options, avoid to visit remote location, but also to deliver multiple customers at the same place. But to really integrate these multiple delivery options, we need to add synchronized resources in the problem. First, for the shared delivery location, they may have a limited capacity. For example, a locker is composed of cells, and only one parcel can be delivered in each cell. So even if multiple drivers come at this locker, they will all put the parcel into the same cell. So the capacity of the locker needs to be taken into account at the level of the whole solution, not only at the level of one route. And with the preference, we define a service level and enforce a minimum service level constraint that at least beta 1% of the customer are served with a level 1 option, and that at least beta 2% of the customer are served with a level 1 or level 2 option. Here, 5 out of 6 customers are served with a level 1 or level 2 options. Thus, we respect the 75% threshold. So, to summarize, the vehicle routing prime with delivery option consists of defining routes to deliver a set of parcels through multiple options, while respecting the time window and the truck capacity, the locker capacity, and the minimum quality of service. The objective is first, lexicographically, to minimize the number of trucks used, and second, to minimize the total travel distance by all the trucks. So the VRPDO is a vehicle routing prime with time window, with multiple delivery options, and synchronized resources. Now I will present the two echelon problem. And in these two echelon problem, we consider reverse flow. This comes from the simultaneous pickup and delivery practice. Here, an example with Colissimo that offers to shops that when the postman comes to the shops to deliver some parcels, he can also collect some other parcels to be sent. Typically, the parcel brought are for the brick-and-mortar shops, and the parcel to be sent are for online customers. In this example, it's for shop, but DHL offers a similar service for private customers, so it's common use. Second, the two echelon structure come from the usage of light vehicle for deliveries in cities. Here is an example of Les Coursiers Nantais. They use cargo bike to deliver parcels in the city center of Nantes. This is very practical because these vehicles are light, they are very agile in the city center, they don't emit greenhouse gas, they are noiseless and so on. But the range and capacity is very limited. So it's undoable to operate them from a warehouse located in the suburb of the city. Thus, they are operated from a small warehouse next to the city center. And that's what it looks like with a more general point of view. So we have a depot located outside of the city, a depot representing the starting point of the bike, and possibly multiple small warehouses located next to the city center. First, a simple example with a green bike that will start its day by meeting at satellite 1 with the truck to get the parcels to be delivered to customer 1, 2, and 3, and then finish his day. But with the integration of capacity at satellite and reverse flow, this can be more intricate. For example, with a blue bike, starting its day by visiting customer 4 to pick up some goods, then meeting at satellite 2 with the truck to give him the parcels to be sent away, and to get the parcels to deliver to customer 5 and 6. Then, before finishing his day, the blue bike can go to satellite 1 and pick up the parcels to deliver to customer 7 that was previously dropped by the truck during this first visit. So, to summarize, The two-echelon multi-trip vehicle routing problem with capacitated satellite and reverse flow consists of defining routes to deliver and collect a set of parcels such that the first echelon routes carry all the goods to and from the satellite while restricting their capacity, such that the two-echelon route visits all the customers while respecting their time window and the truck capacity, and such that the conjunction of the two echelons must define a coherent flow of goods at satellite and respect the capacity of satellite. So meaning that the goods that arrive at a satellite with them leave the same satellite, and that never so much goods are stored at any point of time in a satellite. Now I will present the method that we developed to solve these two problems. First, the small and large neighborhood search that we developed to solve the VRPDO. Then it's hybridization with exact method, the set partitioning problem and the ballast similarity neighborhood that we implemented to improve the results. And finally, the iterative two-stage heuristic using SLNS, small and large neighborhood search, as an internal tool to solve the two-echelon problem. So first, with SLNS, we had to design a method able to manage the multiple delivery options. So a method able to choose among multiple delivery options per customer, but also able to deal with our synchronization with respect to the minimum service level constraint, but also to the capacity of shared delivery location. Thus, we decided to represent route as sequences of options. So even if multiple customers are served in one location, this is represented at different links in the solution. So a solution, a route is then a sequence of options plus the load of the truck and the forward time slack. A solution is a set of routes plus the utilization of each locker and the utilization of each satisfaction level, so that when we want to insert a customer in a route, the feasibility can be tested in constant time. Indeed, to improve the solution, we decided to use a large neighborhood search heuristic. The idea of this meta-heuristic is to iteratively improve a solution by winning it and recreating it. So at each iteration, some customers are removed from the solution and then reinserted in the solution, hopefully to find a better solution. So from an initial solution until a time limit is not reached, at each iteration, a win operator, a recreate operator, and a destruction size are chosen, so that the solution will be win and recreated. Then we decide if we keep the new solution as the current one, or if we reject it. The best found solution is returned at the end when there is no time left. Then we had to implement some operator to fit the algorithm. So we decided to adapt operators from the VRPTW literature and to develop some new one specific to the VRPDO. We implemented 20 operators, and then we conducted many tests to determine the ones that are essential, useful, or redundant with already selected operator. Among the 20 implemented, 9 destruction operators were kept. And a similar process goes on with the reconstruction operator. We adapted some and implemented some new one. Among the 15 implemented, we kept 6. And during these many rounds of tests, we decided to change a bit the framework of LNS, and we propose small and large neighborhood search as a variant of LNS. Its idea is to distinguish between local and large win operator. So the difference is that during most iterations, we choose a local win operator on a small destruction size, so that the destruction will be focused on one part of the solution and will be small, so that reconstruction can be very fast. And again, focus on one part of the solution. But if the algorithm fails to improve the best known solution for omega iteration, then a large destruction is performed as a perturbation. This dynamic can be seen as similar to the one of iterated local search. But mind that when I say small neighborhood, it's still a part of the family of the neighborhood composed of removing and reinserting customer, which is exponential in size. So small, it's still large neighborhood, but smaller than the one usually used with LNS. Now I will present the hybridization with exact method that were developed in partnership with Mainz. So the first hybridization is with a set partitioning model. So we developed a model of the VRPDO based on rules. The objective is to recombine rules previously generated by LNS to hopefully find a better solution. So the objective is to minimize the sum of the cost of the rule, to serve all customers, respect the capacity of shared delivery location, respect the minimal service level constraints, and the maximum number of routes. As I said, we don't solve this model with all the set of possible routes, but with the route previously generated by LNS during previous iterations. So we have to carefully choose when to solve this model with Cplex, because solving this model takes much more time than a classic iteration of LNS, and we keep using the same time budget. In addition, if we solve it too early, then we don't have too many routes to combine. If we solve it too late, Cplex is overwhelmed with a large number of routes and is not able to efficiently solve the model. So we decide to activate this module of the SPP when SLNS is stabilized. That is to say, when the cost of the best found solution was not reduced by more than 1% during the last 5 cycles of small destruction, a large destruction. And then, when the module is activated, the SPP is solved when the pool of routes reach a size T. Initially, this size is equal to 38,000 minus 180 times the number of customers in the instance. Then, this threshold is adapted along the run, depending on the performance of Cplex on this problem. If Cplex fails to improve the solution 2 times in a row and to prove optimality, then T is decreased by a quarter because the problem is too difficult. On the contrary, if Cplex solves the problem to optimality or improves the best known solution 2 times in a row, then T is increased by a quarter to take into account more routes. Second, we decided to hybridize SLNS with the Bala-Simonetti neighborhood. This algorithm was developed to solve a particular TSP with constraint. Its idea is that from an initial tour T, visiting n customer, we search for the least tour T prime, visiting the n customer, and such that no customer move of strictly at most car position away from its initial position in the tour T. This best tour T prime can be found by solving the shortest path problem in an auxiliary graph that I will present shortly after. And this can be found in exponential time of the parameter k, but only in linear time of the parameter n. And here is the auxiliary graph. So we search from a path to the depot, from the depot to the depot, and each layer of the graph represents a position in the route. In addition, the graph can be decomposed in level depending on the value of the parameter k that we use. For example, this is the initial tour T, depot 1235 depot, and another one, depot 31425 depot. This graph is such that all the paths from the depot to the depot visit all customers and respect the precedent constraints. On the opposite, this graph is also such that every path visiting all customers and respecting the precedent constraints can be described as a path from the depot to the depot. But we are not solving a TSP. We are taking into account delivery options. So we first need to generalize customer with delivery options. So now the customer is described as a meta node encompassing one node for each option. And each option is linked to all the options on the following customer. Of course, in the process, we no need to solve shortest path problem with resource constraint to take in account the shared delivery location capacity, the minimum service level constraints, and the time window. In practice, to integrate the ballast similarity neighborhood in SLNS, when we want to improve a solution, we first assemble every pair of roots of the solution as a giant tool, putting them side by side, and then heuristically solve the shortest path problem with resource constraints on the graph with these two roots to hopefully find a better version of this route, or at least save some other version of this route for the SPP to reuse them later on. Similarly, as the SPP, we have to decide on when to use it, because it's time consuming. So we use it only when SLNS has stabilized, so when the cost of the best found solution was not improved during the last 5 cycles. And we use it on solution whose cost is lower than 1% more than the cost of the best found solution so far. Now I will present ITSH, Iterative Two-Stage Heuristic, the method that we developed to solve the two echelon problem. Now this solution has to deal with two echelon synchronizing at satellite. And at the satellite, we need to deal with forward and reverse flow and make sure that the capacity of satellite is always respected. The synchronization is also spatial and temporal, meaning that a good that will leave the satellite needs to arrive here before. That's all the synchronization between the two echelons. So we decided to decompose the problem to solve it. The first subproblem, SP1, intends to improve the first echelon trips. So it will modify the first echelon trips work, schedule, and load plan. So the satellite visited, the time at when they are visited, and the quantity of goods deposited or collected during each of those visits. Meanwhile, the second echelon is fixed, both in time and the work. This problem is solved with SLNS1. So from a given solution, it intends to find a better one with SLNS and generate some first echelon trips. The second subproblem, SP2, on the contrary, intends to work on the second echelon while the first is fixed. But we set free the quantity of goods collected or deposited at each first echelon visit at satellite. So we work on the second echelon works, the visited customers, the time at which they are visited, and we can modify which first echelon truck brings or collects the goods, but not when they are visiting the satellite. So from a given solution, using SLNS2, we intend to find a better solution and generate some trips. Finally, the third subproblem is a MIP model of the model that will be solved by Cplex, and it intends to reuse trips generated by the two SLNS to recombine them and find a better solution. It's similar to the set partitioning problem that I presented you, but much more integrated because it has to deal with the two echelon and their synchronization. And here is how these three decompositions are used. So from an initial solution until the time limit is not reached, at each iteration, we improve the second echelon, then the first one. And if enough trips were generated and if the best known solution was not improved during this iteration, then we solve the MIP model using the previously generated trips to hopefully find a better solution. The best found feasible solution is returned at the end. Similarly, as for the VRPDO, we adapt some operators from the literature and develop some specifics for the problem, either for SLNS1 or SLNS2. So we have large and local destroy operator and recreate operator. But notice that for the recreate operator, we choose to only use least recreate operator. So when customers have to be reinserted in a given solution, these customers are first sorted with a simple criterion, such as the distance to the depot, and then they are reinserted in this order never looking backward to past choices. We made this choice because testing the insertion of a customer in a solution takes a long time. So here is the chart of how we proceed. So when a given customer has to be inserted in the given solution, we first evaluate all the position in the solution. On the chart, you can see gray number of the arcs. It corresponds to the number of times this arc is used in average per call to SLNS2 for insertion in existing visits in an instance with 50 customers and 2 satellites. So from in average 600,000 possible position of insertion, we need to filter them out to speed up the procedure. So first, we use a necessary condition that will test the capacity of the truck and a necessary condition on the time window based on the forward time slack. If the position respects the necessary condition, it is safe and its cost is evaluated. Otherwise, we forget about it. If we remember it, its cost is evaluated, and then we sort all the possible position for the considered customer, and then we evaluate all these positions. As soon as one is proven feasible, the insertion is performed, and the other one are discarded. We forget about it. So the first test is a sufficient condition, the insertion test without satellite rescheduling. So SC1 is a sufficient condition, a fast sufficient condition for an insertion to be feasible. So first, when we work on SP2, the requests of this customer are gradually assigned to existing first second visits. Then the feasibility of the solution is tested without allowing any modification of the order of operation at satellite. So this can be done efficiently, but this is very restricted. So if the position was rejected by SC1, we evaluate it with SC2, another sufficient condition, the insertion test with satellite rescheduling. So this time the insertion is performed with the solution, and if it's not feasible, we try to repair it. To do so, we adapt the double justification heuristic from the resource constraint project scheduling problem. Its idea, on our case, is to first reschedule every operation, both visit at customer and operation at satellite, as late as possible, starting from the latest one, and then reschedule everything as early as possible, starting from the first one. It's like shaking the box to make everything fit, but with many dimensions. And hopefully at the end, the solution is feasible and the insertion is performed. Otherwise, we forget about it. So on the graph, we can see that from the 600,000 possible positions, only 14,000 are evaluated with SC1 and only 10,000 with the sufficient condition. And SC1 is fast and restrictive, but it's already able to perform nearly 2/3 of all the possible insertion performed. Still, SC2 is necessary because we need to find some of this tricky insertion to find good solutions. Now I will present experiments, first on the two methods, then on the two problems. So to evaluate the small and large neighborhood search, we selected some variants of the vehicle routing with delivery option described in the literature. The generalized vehicle routing with time window considers the delivery to customers with multiple locations to be delivered. But the instance of the literature generated by Mocha et al. Considers that the time window of all the locations for a given customer are the same. On the contrary, the vehicle routing problem with roaming delivery location, described by Reyes et al., consider that we can serve a customer at different locations, but that the time window of these different locations for a customer are disjoint. And some instances with the home option are also generated with the home option without any time window. Finally, we consider the vehicle routing prime with multiple time window, where a customer can be served at only one location, but with multiple time window for this location. So for all this problem, we choose to use SLNS plus SPP, so without the ballast immunity neighborhood, because this algorithm is promising, but we didn't succeed in finding an efficient criterion to decide on which instance to use it and when. So it's a bit unreliable, so I decided to present results formed by SLNS plus SPP. So for each instance, we compute the gap between the solution reported in the literature and the one found by our algorithm out of 5 ranks, the best one. For the generalized vehicle routing with time window, we first compare the results to the result of Moche et al. And we can see that we compare favorably. For example, this point means that the cost of our solution was 2% lower than the cost of the solution reported by Moche et al. And for the computing time, our method is significantly faster. For the same instance, we can also compare our results to the result of Yuan et al. And we can see that the time is much closer. And for the computing time, our method is only a little bit faster. Then, for the vehicle routing problem with home and roaming delivery location, we compare our results to the result of the branch and cut and price algorithm of Osbaigin et al. As we can see, our algorithm was able to find all the solutions proven optimal by the algorithm, and to improve the upper bound on the instances. On these instances, compared to the result of Yuan et al., the time is extremely close. And for the computing time, the algorithm tend to be faster on smaller instances, while ours tend to be a bit faster on larger ones, but it's very close. Finally, for the vehicle routing prime with multiple time window, we compare results to the result of Ogeboom et al., and we can see that we compare favorably to the results. So for all this problem, we can see that even if our algorithm is dedicated for the VRPDO, it's able to find very good results for other variants of the problem. Then we evaluate the iterative two-stage heuristic on the two economic vehicle routing problem. So without capacity restriction at satellite and without reverse flow. We compare our results to the results found by Marquez et al. With the branch and cut and price algorithm. And we can see that the deviation is generally not too large. And then on some instance where they reported the solution, we were able to improve the upper bound. But notice that when the size of the instance grows, they are not necessarily able to find a solution. For example, with larger instances, they were only able to find a solution on 15 instances. Our algorithm is always able to find a solution in a reasonable amount of time. So it also validates the ITRSH and a variant of our two economic routing problem. Now I will present some results on the VRPDO. So we had to generate instances. The base instances are the U instance with medium capacity at satellite, 2 options per customer in average between 1 and 3, and large time window for individual delivery location and shared delivery location. We choose beta 1 of 80% and beta 2, so for level 1 and level 2 option, of 90%. We generated instances with 50, 100, and 200 customers. And we also generate the UBC instance with larger shared delivery location and the V instance with less options per customer in average. To evaluate the interest of delivery option, we compare the solution using delivery option with the solution using only the home option, so the vehicle routing prime with time window. With this instance with large time window, we can see that in average, the total driving distance is reduced by 30%, but that the number of vehicle use cannot be reduced because their capacity is binding. And in some cases, the saving in the driving distance can be up to 50%. But when using delivery option becomes really interesting is when the time window of individual delivery location is reduced. So when the time windows are large, as we present, the number of vehicles is the same, and we have a saving of 30%. But when the time windows width is reduced, it is well known that with the vehicle routing with time window, the cost increase, and so does the number of vehicles required to serve all the customers. But when we use delivery options, it is not the case at all. The cost barely increase, and the number of vehicles only increase in very extreme cases. So using delivery option allows to reduce the cost, but also to increase the quality of service because we can use smaller time window for individual delivery locations. And now I will present some results on the two economic problem. We also had to generate some instances. We generated instances with 50 and 100 customers. 50% of them are pure line-haul customers, 25% of them are pure backhaul customers, and the 25 remaining percent are mixed customers. We generated instances with 2, 4, and 8 satellites with a capacity between 20 and 500, which is an unlimited capacity. First, we study the impact of the satellite capacity on the cost with 50 or 100 customers, 2, 4, 8 satellites, and a capacity between 500 and 20. Here, I compute the cost increase in percent, so the increase of the total driving distance when the capacity is limited compared to the case with unlimited capacity. For example, this point means that with 100 customers and 2 satellites, the driving distance between the case with unlimited size capacity and satellite of size 35 is of 10%. So, as we can see, the cost increase when there is more customer, less satellite, and then where the size is smaller. That is to say, when the ratio of total demand of the customer over the total size at satellite is lower. On the contrary, we can see that the marginal gain from increasing the size of satellite is higher when there is less satellite and they are smaller. So using a few satellites of medium-sized capacity does not increase so much the total driving distance. 35 is 3 times the size of a second account vehicle and half the size of a first account vehicle. Second, we can study the gain from the integration of forward and backward flow. So for each instance, we split it in 2 with only forward flow, only backward flow, solve the 2 instances separately, sum up their cost, and compute the gap to the solution, taking in account the 2 flows at the same time. So we can see that the graph are the mirror of the previous one, because the gain is more important when the ratio of total demand over total space at satellite is lower. And this time we can see that using a few middle-sized capacity satellites, the gain from the integration is already of 30%. So taking into account the forward and the reverse flow in an integrated manner, significantly reduce the total driving distance. Finally, I will conclude, first by summarizing my applicative contribution and perspective. So during this thesis, I worked on integrating multiple delivery options per customer, forward and backward flow in a 2-economic system, and with capacity constraint at satellite and at shared delivery location. In addition, with Theo Lecolater during his internship, we worked on choosing the delivery area where to park during the design of the route. So a first perspective would be to integrate all this perspective into one problem. In addition, for future work, it would be interesting to integrate heterogeneous fleet at first or second echelon, and to integrate schedule line at first echelon, such as bus line or flatboat, to bring goods in the city center. Finally, for real case application, it would be very interesting and challenging to consider uncertainties. And for my methodological contribution and perspective, first, I developed SLNS by comparing operator and splitting small and large iteration. And I realized it with an adaptive STP and the balanced humanity neighborhood. I also developed the iterative two-stage heuristic using SLNS with heuristic from the resource constraint project scheduling problem and integrated with a MIP model. For future perspective, it would be interesting to improve SLNS first by using MIP repair operator using an MTZ-based model to repair the solution. Also, it would be interesting to improve the ballast similarity neighborhood, typically by using giant tour heuristic, because the ballast similarity neighborhood in our case is promising, but it's too slow. And finally, with SLNS, it would be interesting to improve the memory management. Indeed, in average, SLNS performs 75 times more iterations than standard LNS. So the time spent copying solution becomes really significant. To improve ETSH, it would be interesting to integrate other backhauling policies, such as all line roll before all backroll, to improve the MIP, for example, with CUST suggested developed by Marquez et al., or to improve the loop switching between the different decomposition. For example, using a MIP model only recombining second echelon trips, or MIP model exactly building the first echelon. This work were presented in conference 6 times and are gathered into 4 papers. The first one published in TRB presents the VRPDO. The second one published in EGTL presents SLNS and its hybridization. The third one to be submitted shortly presents ETSH and the two-echelon problem. And the fourth one, also to be published soon, is an adaptation of the report of Theo Lecolleter about this work about delivery array. Thank you for your attention. I will gladly answer your question, and please maybe speak up a bit for the person online to hear you well.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dumès, pour cette présentation très claire qui respecte le temps imparti. So thank you so much for this clear and timely presentation. We are now entering the Q&A session from the PhD committee members. We'll start with the first reviewer, and please, Professor Claudia Archetti. I hope you can hear me well, and if you can start asking your questions.
Okay. Yes, I can hear you, thanks. Okay, so let me first thank Dorian for the very nice presentation. Yeah, and for the great job in your thesis. Well, not only the thesis was very good as itself as a contribution, but also the presentation was very well structured.
Sorry, we'll try to.
We can't, Claudia. Sorry, we can't hear you here, so we will just
okay.
Try something. Can you speak just
yes.
I have to mute myself. Go on, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. I see that you said yes. Okay. So yeah, I wanted first to thank Dorian for the very nice presentation. I was saying that I mean the thesis in itself is very good contribution, scientific contribution, and in your presentation you gave a proper overview of all the contribution of the thesis, and also the presentation was very well structured in terms of I mean, structuring the problems, the methodologies, and the results that you obtain. So thanks for the presentation. And then I will move to the questions. So I think that because of these, let's say, communication issues, maybe I can give a okay, I can ask some question in batches and then give you the floor for answering instead of asking a question one by one. Okay, so I will start first with the questions related to chapter 1 and chapter 2. So the two chapters referring to the problem with delivery options. A first question is more, let's say, it's not really a question related to to your contribution in itself, but it was just the first question that came into my mind when reading specifically chapter 2, when you introduce this nice analysis on the large neighborhood search, and then you introduce the idea of the small and large neighborhood search algorithm. So the question is the following. What is I mean, this is a new idea, right? In the let's say in the group of schemes or meta-heuristic schemes for solving optimization problems, and we have different kind of schemes that are classified as a meta-heuristic one. What is the difference? For example, to me, when I was reading the scheme of the small and large neighborhood search, I saw a lot of similarities between this scheme and, for example, the variable neighborhood search. So what is, in your opinion, the main difference between these two schemes and whether it indeed exists? So can we say that, okay, the VNS is this, the small and large neighborhood search is this different scheme? Okay. This was my first question. Then still on your meta-heuristic scheme, you did a lot of and you presented also briefly in your presentation a lot of experiments on to choose the operators that at the end you retained in your algorithm. So you tested many operators. I think you said more than 20. And then at the end, you sub-selected just some of them on the basis of their performance. First, just a comment. I think this is an important part of your contribution. So maybe even in the thesis itself, of course, you couldn't do that during the presentation, but even in the thesis, it would have been, let's say, good to give more space to this part of your contribution, and to also not only present more results, but also presenting a more detailed description of how did you choose the operators. Because, for example, I think that especially in the problems that you have studied, you might indeed have cases in which feasibility is an issue, like when you have tight time windows, when you have few delivery options per customers, when you have few possibilities of let's say selecting the best option for the customers. So it might be quite difficult to meet the service level requirements in this case. So you might have some instances in which feasibility is the driving, let's say, driving aspect in the exploration of the search space, while instead for some others this is not the case. So the search is more driven by the value of the solution. So it might be that the efficacy of the operators depends, I mean, on the features of the instances. So this is my second question on whether you observed something like that. And then final question, still on this part, and then I will give you the floor for the answer. This is more technical. I saw at some point that during the when reading the thesis, you didn't mention today that you use the IRES package for tuning the algorithm, the SLNS. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more how, because I couldn't get. I mean, how did you use it in the tuning of your algorithm? Whether did you find it useful? What did you use it for? And so this, I was curious to know about your experience with this package. Okay. Eventually, I can ask some other question later on the second chapter, but I will now give you the floor for the answer to this first set.
Thank you for your question. So the first question was about SLNS. Is it close to VNS or other meta heuristic? So yeah, it can already be seen as close to other. In its dynamic, I think it's close to iterative local search because we perform so here our local search is small destruction and fast reconstruction. So it can be seen as close to local search. And then we perform a perturbation, so a bit like ILS. You talk about VNS, so I assume that there is plenty of variant, but the one I know first perform a perturbation and then use one local search. In our case, it's a bit different because we are not using only one local search. We use many operators in our succession of small destruction and fast repair. We use many different operators, and the combination of destruction and repair operator create many possibilities. So I think it's closer to ILS than VNS, but as always, it's very hard to say exactly and have a quantifier. The only thing I can think about is generalized local search, the generalized local search framework, which tend to represent meta heuristic as graph with transition between different parts, and then maybe we can use some tools from the graph theory to say this is closer to this one, but I'm afraid that open more questions than I answer yours, so I'm sorry. Then for the choice of operators, I have some tables. Here it is. So to choose the operator, the first phase was to start from a complete configuration and to remove operators by family to say if this family of list heuristic, for example, have a large impact or not. But it was very large families to have an idea of what is important or not. And then in a second phase, to refine, we take a configuration with all operators and a no, this one, sorry. So we take a configuration that we estimate acceptable from the first part of our experiment. And then if an operator was not present, then we add it. If it was present, then we remove it. And then with Wilcoxon pairwise test, we evaluate if removing or adding this operator have an impact on the results. Of course, all these deductions are very tight, very linked to the choice of instances. So I tried to have many different type of instances with large or small time window with different preference level and so on. But yes, this conclusion are only valid for the VRPDO, and choosing different options, different characteristic of the instance certainly would change the results. So indeed, it would be very interesting to perform this analysis on different problems and with different settings to see which characteristic have an impact on the choice of operator or not, or if our choice is very robust or not. So I think it's quite robust since we were able to solve many different types of problems with instances generated by different authors, but a complete study would indeed be very interesting. And in this configuration phase about the usage of iRace, first, I try to use iRace to configure everything. Choose the acceptance criterion, choose the operator to use, choose the weights, everything. But it was too important for iRace, and the algorithm, it's a kind of a genetic algorithm in iRace, didn't succeed in converging with the time budget that I give it. So then I try to use it only to choose the weight of the operator. So after choosing the operators, I think that it was good to have a time probability to choose an operator which is the inverse of its average runtime. And then I give this parameter to iRace to play with it and maybe choose a different configuration. But it's occurred that the final configuration was very close to the one I designed by hand. But using iRace gives insights on how the method performed, on which type of configuration are bad or maybe promising, and so on. And again, the choice of instances have an impact, so it would be interesting to perform this automatic configuration on some other instance sets to have more insights on the operator.
Oh.
I will cut my microphone and you can speak.
Okay. Okay, so thanks for the answer. Yes, yeah, I agree with you about the first question. I agree with you that it's extremely difficult to, let's say, properly define the borders, let's say, of the different meta heuristic scheme. And the last comment that you made is interesting. This generalized local search, which can be used as a, let's say, meta scheme of the meta heuristics, let's say, in a sense to understand at least the logic behind the different schemes. Concerning the second answer, yes, I do agree with you that in your thesis you and I see, and it's definitely reasonable. You let's say you decided to go for the more robust setting of your algorithm, which is good. I mean, kind of having a solution methodology which behaves in a satisfactory way in whatever situation, let's say. And that is a choice that I find definitely reasonable. I just say that it might be also another interesting thing might be, okay, then performing an analysis in which you can tell to the user, well, look, if your problem has these specific features, like you are extremely tight with service level constraint, so better if you use this configuration. While instead, if it is not the case, better if you use this other configuration. So you have a general tool which maybe you can, let's say, kind of use differently according to the feature of the instances that you have to solve. And thanks also for the answer to the third question. You definitely answered to that. So I do not want to take too much time because there are a question also for the others. Just a very small last question. which it's very fast. When you use the instead the set partitioning formulation, which selected the roots, kind of you gave to the formulation, let's say a large set of roots, and then the formulation extracted the best one. It was not fully clear to me what is the criteria that you use to select the roots that should be passed to the formulation.
Okay, so the criterion to select if we store root in the pool of fruit is very easy. We store them all. And then when we solve the SPP, we use all the roots stored, and then at the end, we empty the pool, so that during the next call to the set partitioning problem, some root will have been regenerated and some other will be new. And indeed, we try to have some specific criterion depending on the cost of the solution, the cost of the root, the cost of the solution. But it was not very good because a good root can be in a bad solution and a bad root in a good solution and so on. And we also try to have a different scheme to filter the pool after solving the SPP, so to maybe keep some roots, but it was either too time consuming or inefficient, so we decided to simply store all the roots and clear the pool after solving the SPP.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for the answer.
Microphone.
Thank you again for the answer, and thanks again for the presentation. Thanks. That's all from my side.
To the second webinar of the PhD manuscript, Professor Fidelity. First of all, I want to congratulate you for the thesis. It's a nice thesis, as Professor said before. You did a very good job, and this is assessed by the fact that you have already 2 papers to do. And you also address very nice problems. I like these problems, specifically the VRT with delivery option is a nice problem. And I would like to start my question on this problem. In fact, these are not really technical questions, but they are practical ones, more or less. In fact, you define preferences associated with the delivery options. And it's not clear to me how people in practice are going to define preferences. I asked some guys around me, some friends, and they said, okay, but if I don't get my first preference, I'm going to be disappointed, and maybe it's a bad experience for me. So, what do you think about that? How can you in practice manage or implement these preferences?
So indeed, if someone lives in the very countryside and always prefers the home option, he will never be delivered with his first choices. But the idea in practice, at least one idea, would be that when you order a parcel online, you have to give 3 options in different places. And if you only give 2, then you have to pay some more for the delivery. And if you only want to give 1 option, you can, but it will be more expensive. And then that would be the scheme. Then we have to decide on the pricing of using only 2 options or 1 option. So one thing would be to evaluate the costs of the options. So on this graph, I evaluate the cost of solutions on one instance, where I start with 60 level 2 options and 40 level 3 options, and then randomly remove some either level 2 or level 1 option, and keep the same requirements for the general service level constraints. Then we can see that when we remove second level options, the cost increase, and same for the third. So the steep can maybe give us a price for the people if they want to specify only 2 options or only 1 option. But then there is all the marketing to take in account that may be different than this. So this can be an idea, but all the marketing behind to force people to select 3 options, I absolutely don't know about it. But I think that would be an idea to pay fee if you want only 1 option.
I have another question which is related to that. In fact, here the preferences are considered constraints. So you can know that the number of deliveries for which you select the best option is at least a certain percentage and so on. This is the way to do that, but you can do that in another way. You can model this in another way. There is a class of problems of VRP, you know them, which are VRP with profits, where you associate profits with the delivery of the customers. And one version is exactly what we have done, in fact, to select a subset of customers so that you reach a minimum amount of profit. But you can also put in the objective function the maximum of the preferences, the maximum of the profit, and have a constraint on the routine part. Or you can have an objective which aggregates both objectives in such with penalized functions. So what do you think? And is your algorithm, your approach, able to handle different variants? For example, if I want to maximize the profit, the preferences.
So I think with SLNS, I would be able to solve the VRP with profit by playing on the costs on the R. I think it should be possible, but maximizing the total preference, I don't know, as the objective or as aggregated sum with constraints on the cost, I think we need completely another algorithm. I don't really know algorithm working with the cost as a constraints. I assume that exists, but I don't know about it. So.
Okay, maybe
last question, a little bit more technical. The first one is related to the neighborhood of the last humanity. Well, the results are so-so. I really like what you wrote in your thesis, and it's well written, well explained. The results are so-so, and well, the question can be the time, the computation time. This can be an issue, the computation time. But do you think that there is, maybe there are other things, other issues which are such that this neighborhood does not work really properly, because it comes from the GTSP somehow, and then you move to some type of GTSP you consider on one route. So, do you think that there is something which could be wrong with this neighborhood?
We decided to use the balanced humanity neighborhood on the VRPDO because Stefan Ehrlich and his team already used it on other VRPs, and which was way more successful than our application. And in our case, the problem was with the resources. So we need to have one resource for the time, one resource for the capacity of the track, one resource for each of the preference level, and one resource for the capacity of each shared delivery location. So we have quite a lot of resources, and we try to not take in account some shared delivery location capacity, for example, when they are non-binding, and we choose to heuristically solve the shortest path problem. But then we have to decide on which value of k to use. If k is too small, there is not so many possibilities. And if k is too large, then it's much too time consuming. But also there is a problem because I said that in the route, we decided to represent a route as a sequence of options. So if one option is at the beginning of its sequence of deliveries into a locker, then we can move it in the middle and still the same solution. So we forbidden it. But let's say with k equal to 5, this option can hardly move after, and the last can hardly move before. And finally, for the resources, we decided to solve it as a giant tour, but with only pair of routes, only 2 routes at the same time. And of course, we need to limit the capacity consumption by fixing the other part of the solution. But maybe consider it as a real giant tour and with more specific heuristic able to deal with a lot of resources and a long path to optimize route do. So that's one of the perspectives. And also, the ballast simulated neighborhood is able to find very tricky solutions that the neighborhood were not able to find. So I think it's promising, but we need to find a criterion to decide more precisely on which type of instance to use it and on which type of solution, maybe more specifically to which type of route, to say, okay, this route, maybe you can improve it, maybe not. So I think there is a lot of questions, either to improve our solving algorithm or to decide on when to use it. So,
just a small question. In the ballast simulator, in your implementation, you move from one node to a separate node. So, do you think that moving from one node to a separate node
has an impact on the neighborhood?
it's it has one because the complexity was linear in the number of customers. No, it's times the number of options, of course. But it also have an impact because with the initial design, you can say that one customer is close to the one next to it, and with options, it's not necessarily the case. So yes, maybe the ballast simulated neighborhood was not a good choice to begin with, but we think that it was promising because it was able to choose the options to use for every customer at once.
Yeah.
So all the options for one route at once. So we thought that it could be interesting to do so.
Okay. And my last. Okay. Okay. My last question is related to one thing to mention in your conclusion. You said something about improvement of the memory management. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
So when working on SLNS, I benchmark the code with profiling software to see where we lost time. And I noticed that we spend a lot of time to copy solutions. So at the beginning of each iteration, we need to copy the solution to recreate it and then decide if we keep it or not. So I try to implement a data structure that does not copy every route at every iteration. We copy the route only if we need so. But still, we need to copy all the data structure next to it to say where is the customer, the capacity of shared delivery location, and so on. So we still do quite a lot of copy. The idea would be to find another acceptance criterion and to continue on kind of string of solution, always accepting them, and then decide if we continue the string or not. And the purpose would be to not copy solution at every iteration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment. It was very interesting.
Thank you for your questions. So we move to the next examiner, Sonia Verheyen from Sardi. Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank you, Fabien and Olivier, for inviting me. It's a nice opportunity for me. And then I want to thank you, Dorian, for your nice work and your nice presentation. So now my question, the first one is very short. It's about the title of the PhD. It's about logistic urban logistics. What about rural logistics?
I think rural logistics it's much more different because we can't use the density of people at the same place. And
But the distance increases. So number of kilometers increase, so the question of the logistics increases.
yeah, I was thinking, for example, to use shared delivery location. So it would be harder to have two people using the same place every day. But then if you can, you save indeed quite a lot of kilometers because you don't have to go in remote places. So it would be interesting to study the impact of delivery option on rural area, but then we have to generate the instance differently to match this setting, to say people are far away, and maybe there is not so much people visiting one given places every day. And again, maybe in rural area, the spread of delivery option per customer would be different because in city you can move from different corner of the city every day to go to your work, go shopping, go to the gym, take your kid at school, and so on. In rural area, I think it's less the case. Typically, kids go to school with a dedicated bus, who never go to school. You don't go shopping every day, you go only once a week. So I think it would be different, but indeed, delivery option could be interesting, but we had to generate different instances to see that.
And what about tourism in this case?
I think two echelon in rural area is not a good idea because cargo bikes are very efficient in city because they can go in every street. But their drawback is that their range is limited. Whereas in rural area, every truck can go in every street without any problem. And the distance are much more important. So using a cargo bike might not be so interesting in rural area. But then a two-echelon system with large vehicle at the two-echelon, maybe it could be interesting, but I don't really see the point.
Okay, my second question is also about the two-echelon. And you said that there are reverse flows, but the reverse flow goes from the client to the first echelon. Is it possible, in your case, to have a pickup and delivery problem? And I think it's not. Is it possible to convert it to a pickup and delivery problem? And would it be relevant in practice
So
to send a package from a client to another client with some shipment, with separation, with
I think that could be integrated quite easily if we restrict that the pickup and the delivery of customer to customer are in the same second echelon route. Then I think I can integrate it quite easily. But if we allow for one second echelon vehicle to visit the pickup, go to a satellite, drop the goods there, and to be delivered later on with another second echelon vehicle, it's much harder with our satellite schedule. So the order of operation at satellites that we manage with a double justification, then I think it will be much harder. And then we have to decide on how to insert this customer. If we insert the pickup and the delivery at the same time, then the number of possibilities is huge, especially with the satellite in the middle.
but would it be relevant in practice?
I think it could be, yes.
And my last question is about the delivery option. You said in perspective that you try to use an exact method to reconstruct the solution, the CPEX.
For which problem, sorry?
The vertical with delivery option.
Mhm.
And we didn't succeed in this. MTZ, you try to only solve the selection problem, optimally, and not the routine.
So the
So you
selection of
select-
options.
You select the option optimally, or quite optimally, with an exact method at least.
Hmm.
And then you make a routine with the right.
No, we never discussed about it. It would be indeed a very good idea. For the exact repair, we had some idea and we did some preliminary experiments with raw implementation, but the computing time was much too high or limit us to very small destruction size. So we forget about it, but we still think that there is some room for exact repair operator, and typically select the option and then do the routes with heuristic could be very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. Now, Nabil Gabzi, Professor École de Mines de Saint-Étienne, will ask his questions.
Thank you. First, I thank the two supervisors for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to visit the Get-Office. It's my first time here. And also to attend the PhD defense of Dorian. I thank also Dorian for his presentation. He did a very nice presentation, I think. And then he showed very clearly the configuration of these PhD thesis within 40 minutes, which is very nice exercise. And also for the manuscript, it was very likely to read, very easy to read, with a lot of figures to illustrate different parts of the contributions. I have some questions. Maybe Claudia pointed out the SLNS meta heuristic, and I have other questions, maybe complementary questions to this question, because I have the same feeling also. What is the difference between SLNS and different meta heuristics, and also ILNS, because ILNS we give the opportunity to the algorithm to choose the operator. Maybe the first question is, have you tried to add the adaptiveness within your algorithm to let the opportunity to your algorithm to choose the best operators, and that will increase the probability to choose this operator, for example, for intensification or diversification?
Thank you. And indeed, yes, we try to adapt to implement the A, and that's how we developed the S variant. It's because we implemented this adaptive LNS with the choice of operator, but then we noticed that regrets get better results, of course, but it's much slower than only heuristic. So then we have to decide, okay, it's better but slower. So how to take that into account in the score? It was not very trivial, and then we had to decide on the destruction size. Okay, how to choose it? Maybe a score too. Same for the win operator, but maybe a score that will be linked for the tree, like a tree of choices. But it was getting more and more intricate, and it was not to our liking to have such a complex system. So that's how we developed this S scheme to choose between local and small destruction size with fast repair.
Because you naturally said, okay, if the best way to apply the method is to do small and then large, maybe the A will be able to do first the S and then follow the by large. This was my first question, but the answer.
To choose on when to do a large destruction based on learning?
Yeah.
Instead of just
yeah.
Yeah, very good idea. Thank you.
I don't know what will be the result. The second question is, again on this method, is about the premature convergence. Generally, for some meta heuristics, when we try to intensify the search, we can get stuck at a given moment within local optima, and it's not easy to move from this local optima to find another solution to move to another local optima. Have you faced this kind of results when you get stuck within a solution after the S?
If we use only small neighborhood, it's as Christian's did. So you can get very good results on CVRP, but with delivery options, indeed, you get stuck. So that's why we add this large instruction to perturb the search and visit different area of the solution space. And this large instruction can be indeed very large with random removal that can completely perturb the structure of the solution. And then the search can continue. In addition, the set partitioning problem also helps with this matter. When routes are recombined, you can drastically change the options choose for each customer and then continue the search after recombining the routes.
This means that you never face the situation when you get stuck within a solution and then cannot generate other solutions.
It sometimes happens on very restricted solution, but it's not so often.
This was mainly really questions. And I have some other small questions, very minor questions, but I have just one last question about the capacity of the lockers. Do they have an impact on the quality of the solution, or have you noticed something? If you have large capacities, do you have worse solutions? It's better to have a large number of lockers or small number of lockers.
You mean the number of lockers or the capacity?
The number of lockers that you have within the application.
We studied the impact of the capacity of locker, but not of the number indeed. I'm sorry about that.
No? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Thanks again for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So before giving the floor to the people who work closely with you, I will ask a question. So actually, I would have had 5, 6 questions. And I have some delivery options also to respect today. So I will just ask one. Given the need for speeding up your resolution methods, what do you think about the current wave of, let's say, data-driven approaches that will guide the solutions or speed up the resolutions based on history of data or machine learning?
I'm clearly not an expert in machine learning, but according to what I saw in different presentations, I think that on the contrary, the drawback of machine learning for meta heuristic is the computing time, because it can efficiently drive the method to good areas, but you have to feed it with data along the run, and then it takes time to run, let's say, a neural network to choose on which operator to use at this iteration. And given the fact that SLNS rely on the fact that we are doing a huge number of iterations, calling on neural network at the beginning of each iteration would, on the contrary, be too time-consuming to be efficient. But there is much progress to be done and already done on this progress, on this matter. So maybe some recently published paper address these issues. But yeah, it's clearly a promising way.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, there is a lot to discuss. That's beyond the scope of this thing. We can discuss later. So Professor Stefan Illich. If you can hear me, you have time to ask 2-3 questions.
Okay, I will keep it short. So I'm co-author of many papers, so I can just ask on the presentation and maybe a comment before. So I found it very well structured, and for, say, the mass of material, it was a very good selection. So compliments for that. I would take up the question that came just before. This for the problem with delivery options. Select the options first and then solve the vehicle routing problem. I would like to hear your opinion. Say, I would be pessimistic that this could work because I don't see a good criterion to to weigh the different options before you actually do the routing. But maybe you have some ideas what the profit for each option could be. So that would be my first question. And second one is on the 2-echelon problem. In the Outlook, you mentioned that there are also different delivery and collection policies possible. I think on the first and on the second echelon. And I would like you to comment on what is actually realistic in reality, which alternative policies. So 2 completely different questions.
So, yeah, first, for the MIP model to choose options, one simple idea that came to my mind was for each customer to be reinserted using this model was to first compute the cheapest possible insertion for each option of each of these customers and use it as a cost function for the MIP model. Then the MIP model chooses the option that will minimize the total insertion cost of all these options. Of course, it would not be the actual insertion cost, because if we insert 2 options next to another, then it may be more expensive or less expensive. So it would be an approximate optimal choice of options for all the customer. So that was my first idea when I listened to the question. And for backhauling policy, so a common policy is to say all line haul before all backhaul, so that the cargo is easy to handle. But I think it's too restrictive in practice, so there is some in-between policies to say we can start to do backhaul when the line haul is at 80% of progress, for example. And then you can start to collect some goods when you have enough free space in your cargo hold. And then you can move the cursor between what we do, which is backhaul and line haul completely mixed, or the strict line haul before backhaul.
And
so I got my microphone so that you can speak.
For which echelon? For which echelon do you think this is more realistic, the first or the second?
I think for the second echelon, it's quite important to have a strict backhauling policy because the vehicles are small. So if you start to move many goods on the side of the road, it's clearly not practical. But for the larger trucks, they dock or they at least park next to the satellite, which are reasonable size warehouse. So you have more space to move around, and maybe you can prepare what will be delivered uncollected, and that can also be done in the satellite. So I think have a strict policy for the first echelon is not necessary, but to put the mixed line haul and backhaul on the second echelon into practice, it's important to have quite a strict policy for backhauling.
Okay, thank you. Good answer.
Okay, sorry, I thought you have other questions, so thank you for your question.
Ok. Bien, pour terminer, je vais donner la parole à vos deux directeurs de thèse, en commençant par Olivier Petit. So first of all, I would like to thank the jury members who took to review this PhD, and thank you also for the quality of your questions and comments. I'm sure there are plenty of ideas that have been emitted today, and so this suggests that the topic is not completely over. Then, peut-être je vais parler en français maintenant. Je voudrais te remercier, Dorian, pour la qualité de tes travaux, la quantité de travail et le fait que ça a été un plaisir de travailler avec toi pendant 3 ans. Qui passe très très vite. Et non, il travaille partout pour nous. Et il y a pas eu beaucoup de surprises tellement que c'était méthodique, organisé, précis, toujours d'humeur égale. Et les quelques surprises qu'on a eues, ça a été plutôt des bonnes surprises. Je vais citer juste un exemple à la fin du travail sur le VRPDO, lorsque on a jugé que les résultats étaient suffisamment stables et que l'algorithme était suffisamment abouti. À la fin d'une réunion, on a dit c'est bien, Dorian. Maintenant, je crois qu'on va pouvoir commencer à rédiger le papier. Et là, il a dit ah, mais j'ai une première version. Et il nous a tendu un manuscrit de 25 pages qui ressemblait déjà à un brouillon plutôt de bonne qualité. Donc voilà, ça c'est Dorian et bravo pour tout ce que tu fais.
Merci à vous.
Merci Olivier. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you, all the jury, for being here. Thanks a lot. It's an honor to have such a great jury for our PhD students, and we really appreciate that you could reuse the manuscript for the reviewers and also put here or connect from a distance. I would like really to thank Stefan and Christian at Mainz also, because this PhD could happen thanks to you, because the project which funded the PhD would not have happened otherwise. And also thanks a lot for welcoming Dorian when he came to Mainz and sharing a lot of ideas with us and with Dorian, and that was that is a great collaboration, and we really appreciate that. So thanks a lot. And Dorian, yes, it was a great pleasure to have you as a PhD student. I think you're really bright and hard worker, and Olivier said a lot already, but I can only say the same. I'm sure you will have a great career in research and the rest of research, whatever you want to do. And also thank you, because we never had a conflict. It was always us giving a lot of advice or orders or whatever instructions, and you never say no because you didn't want to try. There was always a good reason for you to try everything, and that's a great quality. I think you are listening to us, and you had so many good ideas in this PhD. I'd like to thank you for that. So thanks for all this work, and yeah, good luck for the work.
Thank you very much. It was also 3 very good years with you. And thank you for the jury to come to game.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. I think now the committee is going to deliberate well. So I think